Hi everybody, it is Tina again today, and I cannot believe we're actually into October. So today I'm going to share with you how I created my art journal this month. So I took out the art journal that I've been actually using for all of my art journal shares for Frog Dog Studio, and you can see the background was one of my rub-offs from my jelly plates. So what I actually did is print out this cool image right onto the paper that was included in the limited edition kit this month, and I thought it would be kind of a fun way to start building a background. This art journal page actually took many turns along the way, and you don't see a whole lot of that in the background, but it's a technique I think I might use on a future art journal page because I thought it was really cool, just that image of that building with the text behind it. So what I'm doing right now is just trying to figure out kind of placement on the art journal. And of course, I'm going to grab my handy dandy, trusty Claudine Helmuth matte medium. I've actually gone through 3 jars of that stuff. I love that matte medium. It's probably one of my favorite ones out there. It really it takes well to all the paper. I like the look of it too when it dries because you can't really see the brush strokes in it too much. It's got a nice texture to it when it does dry. So I'm just going to go ahead and add these printed pages right to my art journal. You can see I just broke them up. I thought it would just be kind of a fun way to add more of that without in one big section. So I just randomly ripped them up, and I'm going to adhere them to my background. I went ahead and let that dry. I tried it a little bit with the heat tool, but I just set it aside and let it dry. So now I'm going to take, actually this is one of Rhonda's new stencils from Crafters Workshop, the new releases from CHA. It came out, and I'm using the purple and green spray that were in both the main kit and the limited edition kit, and I'm just starting to build some of the colors and the layers on my journal page, and you can see the different layers there on the background. So now I'm also taking the stencil. That was kind of the only thing I had in mind for my journal page. I somehow wanted to use the stencil from the limited edition kit. And I'm going to go ahead and apply some of the embossing paste onto my art journal page. I'm using the embossing paste that was in the main kit, not the transparent one. I use that in several of my other October kits, and both of these are such awesome product. I really like the texture and consistency of the embossing pastes. And I knew I was going to color over the embossing paste with lots of color and maybe inks and paints, but I wanted to really build some texture to the page, and that's why I'm using the embossing paste, just so it adds that texture and that raised feel to the background. After I had taken it off, I realized I wanted to go ahead and put the nose on, so I'm just doing that right here. And then I'm going to use one of the design elements from that stencil on the other side of my page just to kind of tie it in. I really liked the top of that skull, and I like that design element, so I'm going to go ahead and just build that on the other side of my page. I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm adding some more of the that starburst shape. I do 3 of them here, again, just to add some more texture to the background. That's one thing when I was developing that stencil, I wanted to kind of keep that in mind so you could use a different design element instead of the skull. So I let the embossing paste dry, and now I'm just going to start adding more layer of color. So this is just gesso. I'm adding gesso onto my page again to kind of blend it in to the background, and just wiping some of it off so you can see some of the text behind it. You can see some of that printed image of the building behind it, and just start blending the colors together. So now I took several colors of distress paint that I had in my stash, and I knew I wanted to use some of the same colors, the greens and the yellows and the blues. So I went ahead and just dabbed some of the yellow right onto my page and spritz it with water. Again, distress paints react with water, and spread it around with a paintbrush, again, just to keep adding and building more color and layers to my background. So I'm doing the same thing over here. Dab some of it on. That's one thing I really love about the paint that's in the daubers. You can do it, and it's pretty mess free. So now what I'm using is some of the magicals. I thought it would be kind of interesting. I wasn't quite sure what would happen if I took a stiff brush and rubbed the magicals directly on the embossing powder. Actually, over there on that side that I'm working on right now, the embossing powder wasn't quite dry, and this embossing, or not embossing powder, the embossing paste is softer than some other embossing paste. So when I used that stiff brush on it, it actually started to tear it down, and on the other side of the page there wasn't much left of the design that I originally had put on with that stencil. So that's something to keep in mind when you are using this embossing paste. It is a stiffer or a softer consistency, and it doesn't dry super hard like some of your other golden or Liquitex modeling pastes that are out there. It is a softer consistency. So now I'm taking some of the Lindy spray. This is actually one of my favorite white sprays. I think it's a ghostly white. It's going to be in the store as well. It's got a tint of blue to it, but when it starts to react with the magicals and with the other elements on the page, it created a really pretty purple. So I just sprayed it on and let it drip down, and then dried it with my heat tool. This is actually, I've added a lot more color, you can see on my page, on both sides, and I'm using distress paints again. And then what I did on the side that I had the skull stencil, I really wanted to start pulling out those elements of the skull features, the mouth, the nose, and the eyes. So I'm using the distress paints to really build on the layers. And again, since they react with water, I'm just spraying my page with the water to start blending those colors together. And so now, like I said at the beginning, this art journal actually took a lot of twists and turns. I wanted to pop out those skull features even more. So what I'm doing right now is just taking gesso and rubbing it around the outside of those features. So I'm really highlighting the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and then the other features of the skull from the stencil. And so you can see that they're really starting to pop off this page. And the reason I was doing this is I thought it would be kind of cool to then put the stencil back on and spray it with some Liquitex spray paint. I actually had never used it before this, and I love it. I love how it turned out. So I'm really just matting down that background, so when I spray over it, and you'll see what I mean when the video moves ahead, it really made those elements pop off the stencil. So again, I'm just randomly putting that gesso on and rubbing it in, so you can still see some of the background, but it makes those elements pop. So now I'm just working around the cheek areas, again, to kind of let them stand out some more, and blending the paints on the other side as well. And you can see the page was wet, so when I'm doing that, the distressed paints are actually blending together. I really liked how they look with the gesso blended in with it. It created a really soft, but yet colorful and bright background. So I knew I wanted some more drips. Then I took the Lindy's Screamin' Banshee, which is in the store as well. Between the Screamin' Banshee and the Ghostly White, those two, I've actually used my entire bottle of white in my projects and then projects that I've done after this. I wanted some more drips, so I'm using the Banshee, Screamin' Banshee on the background, and it's a black color, but it has a purple tint to it. So again, when it starts mixing with other elements on the paper, it's a beautiful, beautiful color. I used that a lot in the Halloween house that I created. So now you can see what I was talking about. I took the stencil again, and I used the black acrylic Liquitex spray paint and sprayed over it again. And you could do the same thing with just acrylic ink and a dauber. You could put the stencil back on and daub on with the paint, but I really liked the look that was created with the spray paint. It was a lot faster, and it dried almost immediately, and this turned out probably better than what I thought it would be. But you can see, especially around the eyes, when I put that gesso on that page, it still has some subtle texture and color to the background. So now, after I had outlined the skull, you saw that previously with my dueling pen, I'm just adding some more color to the background to kind of balance out the color on both sides of my page. You can see me doing that with the blue and the purple that I had, and then I did the same with some green and the yellow. And just more color. This art journal has lots and lots of colors and layers on it, but that's what I think is so fun about art journaling and just creating mixed media like this. You just keep playing with it, and you can add paint and add gesso and stamp on it and kind of whatever you want until you get it to something that you're happy with and how you like it. And it's just really, it's playing around creatively, and it just gets your brain thinking about different colors and how they look together and what the different patterns. And then when you're playing with your materials this way, your product this way, you'll usually find new and fun ways to use the product that you hadn't thought of before. Right now I'm kind of addicted to circles, and I knew I wanted some circles on the page, so I took some of the yellow distress paint, and you can just see me adding some total random shaped circles onto the page. There's something about circles to me that really balance out art journals. I think almost on every single one of the art journals I've done for Frog Dog, I've got circles on it. It's one of my go-to design elements, and they just never get old. They just always look so fabulous on mixed media projects. So now I'm just trying to balance out some of that yellow on the other side of the page, because I've got those three really bold circles on. the left side of the page, so I really wanted to put a little bit more yellow onto the other side to balance that out. The other thing that's really fun about these distress paints, and you can see me doing this here, because they are so fluid, they blend really well together. It's not so much like an acrylic regular paint, and you can see when I put it on there, you still see the white and you still see the yellow, and they blend very nicely together. So now what I'm doing, I just kind of wanted to decorate that skull. So I started painting different features of it. You can see me painting some of the teeth here. I paint the different shapes that are in the skull. You can see it all painted here. I highlighted it. I used some of my Montana markers to add some dots and some colors, and those worked fabulously on it as well. And you can see me just taking one of my mind's eye stamps and stamping on one of the eyes, and it actually fit perfectly. I just love how that looked, and it created kind of this creepy looking eye from the skull, but I liked that look where there was one eye and one not, and I think that's what's really cool about that stencil. You can really dress it up or not dress it up. You can bling it out if you want to. So again, I just used my distress paints and my Montana markers to add some color to that skull. And now I'm taking the Screaming Banshee again and putting another layer of it dripping down. That's another thing that I never get tired of. Circles and drips. I like that look on a lot of my art journal pages. It's something that, at least for right now, that I'm not getting tired of, and I like it. So you'll probably see it on several of my art journal pages. And if it's too much of a spray, you can just dab it off. You can dab it off with your spare rag, with a baby wipe, with a paper towel, kind of whatever you have laying around if you don't want quite that look. So then what I did, and I didn't capture this in the video, I went ahead and typed out my sentiment, which is actually in the finished product. You can see that in the images that I've put on the blog post, but I just glued it down on the other side of the page, and I added my sentiment, and it was done. So I hope you enjoyed my art journal this month, and I look forward to seeing your creations. Thanks for stopping by.